within 30 yards of me, and he comes in just big, pearly white mainframe 8, and I'm trying to stop him. And he comes in 30 yards, Matt, doesn't stop. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm kind of in panic mode now. I got this buck here. He's out of my shooting lane. He's walking down this old mud log road, and I pick like a triangle pocket in the trees, and I'm like, there he is, quartering away, and just like on instinct, just made it happen and hit him quartering away, and he just ran down this old service road, just laying it all out, and you can see his front legs getting lower and lower and lower and lower, and then disappears into the CRP.
Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, powered by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, episode number 215. Curt Geier, the working class bow hunter. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible. Today's show is sponsored by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, the Horny Buck Seed Company, Covert Scouting Cameras, and Morse's Sporting Goods. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
This is Art Helen from Art Helen Outdoors, Dodgeville, Wisconsin. Get ready to listen to another amazing interview, the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hi, this is Ben Rising with Whitetail Edge. Sit tight because you're about to listen to the best podcast that you possibly can listen to, the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Mia Anstein of Mac Outdoors. You are about to push play on one of my favorite podcasts, Big Buck Registry.
Welcome, fellow predators and carnivores. My name is Jay, and for Jim Keller and Dusty Phillips, welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. If you're interested in this podcast or other podcasts, we could really use your help. If you're an iPhone user and you're a podcast listener and you're a deer hunter and you like this show, if you would, even if you don't use the podcast app, but you use something else like Stitcher or Blueberry or TuneIn, or you go to YouTube and watch our shows over there, would you please do something for us? Go to the podcast app and do a search for Big Buck Registry, and then hit subscribe once it comes up. And I understand iTunes does not make this easy, but leave us a review about this show. If you're a first-time user or a long-time user and you haven't done it yet, please go over there, give us a review, hopefully a 5-star. But if it's not, that's okay. We need the feedback, and it certainly helps our visibility in the iTunes charts if you do that. So if you could, please support this show by doing that. That'd be greatly appreciated. We're also running the harness program. There are 3 ways to help out in the harness program. Number 1, if you need a harness, shoot us an email. Number 2, if you have harnesses to donate, shoot us an email. Or number 3, if you don't need a harness and you don't have a harness to donate, but you want to participate in this cause where we put harnesses in the hands of the hunters that need them, you can go to bigbuckregistry.com/harness and you can donate. A little bit goes a long way. And the reason we're raising money is that we need a budget to mail these things out as they arrive. So if you could, again, bigbuckregistry.com/harness, and you can support that cause by visiting that website and donating whatever you feel you can. We're going to turn to our interview in just a moment, but before we do, let's turn to Jim Keller with the Deer News.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week, Connecticut man dies of tick-borne illness. This story was originally featured on the foxnews.com website. A man described as an avid gardener by his grieving relatives died earlier this month after contracting a rare tick-borne illness at his Connecticut home. Michael Yoder, 55, was suffering from symptoms similar to a stomach bug for several weeks before his illness turned severe, the Danbury News-Times reported. A test revealed he had contracted babesiosis, but by that time the disease was irreversible. Yoder of New Milford died of kidney and liver failure on August 8th, the news outlet reported. Wendy Yoder, his widow, said she regularly helped her husband check for ticks after he had been gardening, but that neither of them saw any signs of a tick bite when he fell ill. Babesiosis is caused by microscopic parasites that infect red blood cells and is spread by infected black-legged or deer ticks, which are typically found in the Northeast and Upper Midwest, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Symptoms can range from asymptomatic to life-threatening, though treatment is typically successful. Dr. Paul Nee, an infectious disease expert at Western Connecticut Health, told the Danbury News-Times that cases of babesiosis continue to increase year after year in the state. Nee said there have been 55 confirmed cases so far in 2017, compared to 41 in 2016. A GoFundMe page was set up to help the family cover funeral expenses. Special thanks to Daniel Applebaum for the lead on this story. Repeat offender guilty of poaching in Southeast Ohio. This story was originally featured on the Outdoor News website and was reported by Frank Hinchy. Travis Cundiff, 28, of Langville, Ohio, was recently convicted of 2 hunting-related charges and sentenced in Meigs County Court of Common Pleas, according to the Ohio DNR. On November 30, 2016, ODNR Division of Wildlife officers Chris Gilkey and Dan Perko, along with wildlife investigator Travis Abiley, were working a project in an area in Salem Township, Meigs County, which is owned by the American Electric Power but leased to a hunting club. Numerous complaints of people poaching deer on the property have been reported. While they were in the area, the officers observed Cundiff shoot at a deer from the roadway. Officers pulled over his truck. Cundiff was arrested. During the search of his vehicle, the officers discovered a pump shotgun, loose shotgun slugs, and hunting clothes and accessories on the front seat of the truck. After appearing in Meigs County Court of Common Pleas, Cundiff was found guilty of 1 felony count of improperly handling a firearm in a motor vehicle and 1 misdemeanor count of shooting from a public roadway. He was ordered to pay $2,000 in fines and court costs and was placed under 5 years of reporting probation and received 5 years of hunting license revocation. Violation of his probation would result in 18 months in prison and an additional 6 months in the county jail. A 2001 Chevy 4x4 truck and a Remington 870 12-gauge shotgun were forfeited to the ODNR Division of Wildlife. Cundiff is a known repeat offender with 20 previous wildlife-related violations, according to the Division of Wildlife. He is one of the poachers convicted in Operation Enough in 2007, in which 9 individuals from Meigs and Franklin counties were charged with 59 wildlife violations. The ODNR Division of Wildlife encourages anyone observing or suspecting that wildlife violations are occurring to report illegal activity by calling the Turn In a Poacher tip hotline toll-free at 1-800-POACHER. That's 762-2437, or submitting information online at wildohio.gov. All information received by the TIP program will remain confidential. New research sheds light on lunar phase impact on white-tailed deer. This story was originally featured on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette website and was reported by John Hayes. Conventional wisdom has long held that deer are more active on moonlit nights and most active under a full moon. The day after, the conjecture followed, deer moved less in the daylight. Some hunters stake their outdoor reputations in support of this theory, as well as their ability to fill a freezer full of venison. Companies that publish solar lunar tables for the use of hunters bet their businesses on it. 1 week before the moon made eclipsable news, the Penn State College of Agricultural Sciences published research suggesting that the moon and its phases have little to no impact on deer mobility by day or night. The new research used data gathered by the Deere Forest Study Program, an ambitious collaboration of Penn State, the U.S. Geological Survey, and the State Game Commission and Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Initially funded for 2013 to 2017, the Deere Forest Project combined hunter questionnaires, radio-collared deer monitoring, and periodic habitat analysis in Rothrock, Bald Eagle, and Susquehannock state forests. The goal was to learn more about the ways that deer, soils, and vegetation impact forested areas. The research used GPS-monitored positions of does 2 years old or greater collected in October 2015 and October 2016. The original research had tracked those does on an hourly basis, providing better positioning data. The statistical model combined the elements of sunrise, sunset, hour of day, and moon phase. Tens of thousands of data points were tracked by Jessica Hepner, a Penn State undergrad awarded a summer research grant to analyze deer forest study data. The GPS telemetry showed that the deer moved nearly 200 feet per hour at night and fewer than 165 feet per hour during the daylight hours. They move from about 400 to 450 feet per hour at sunset and sunrise and were more active near dusk than dawn. Overlaid against periods of full moon, the study showed that the deer traveled less than 20 feet further per hour during nights with a full moon. In daylight, during periods of partial moon phase, they moved about 13 feet further. The study showed that moon phase had no effect on deer movement. The next study, to be based on deer forest data, will look at some of the 13,000 deer locations from October 2013 to October 2014 to determine how deer respond to weather and other factors. The Deer Forest Study blog is posted at http://ecosystems.psu.edu/research/projects/deer. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. For links to the stories featured this week, please check our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have any questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
This week's guest is Curt Geier, and Curt is a podcaster. He's a deer hunter, and he has a podcast called The Working Class Bowhunter. I've known Curt for quite a while. He's a good guy. I enjoyed talking to him at ATA. We've been bouncing things off of each other for quite a while in regards to podcasting. Good to have somebody like Curt that you can talk to in this industry, specifically the niche of podcasting, specifically the niche of deer hunting podcasting. So we thought it was only appropriate that we finally put together a podcast with each other, and maybe someday Curt will ask me to be on his show too. But we get to learn about how Curt developed the podcast, how he thought of it, and we get to learn some of the techniques that he uses because he is a bowhunter. He does consider himself working class. He works for John Deere, and when he's not working for John Deere, he's in the woods doing some of the most simple, affordable setups that one can get. So this show, maybe more than most, will be relative to everybody, meaning that anybody can hunt the way Curt hunts. Curt is a successful hunter. He's sent me many pictures of deer that he's killed, and if you haven't checked out his show, you really should. It's entertaining. There's really no filter. It's funny, and they come bearing their opinions, and they speak their mind. They speak freely. So if you enjoy a really hardcore, honest get-together of a bunch of hunting buddies with a little comedy and candid and open conversations about all kinds of topics, then you want to go check out The Working Class Bowhunter. So without further ado, here is Curt Geier. Curt Geier, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, not much. Thanks for having me. Finally got it done here, it seems like.
I don't know if we should tell people about our little adventure we had trying to get the audio quality right.
Well, when you live in the middle of nowhere, but that, and I guess we've been talking back and forth about trying to record together for, what has it been, 2 years, roughly? Off and on.
Yeah, thereabouts, because we had that conversation at ATA that one time over by the Matthews booth, I recall.
Yeah, yep. Me and Eric met up with
That's right, you and Eric, and then you tracked us down in the streets there, and you're like, is that Dusty Phillips? Is that the real Dusty Phillips?
Yes. It's funny because Dusty is kind of like our Steve on the podcast. It's like I'm scared for them to meet, honestly, because they might just ditch us and start their own podcast together.
They might, although based off of our technical prowess that we just put together. So do you listen to podcasts?
I do. Man, I don't listen to a lot of hunting podcasts, to be honest with you, because, and I mentioned this sometimes on our show, I don't listen to a lot of hunting podcasts because I don't want it to like subconsciously influence what I'm doing.
Right.
And I don't know. I've heard like stand-up comedians say that they don't watch a lot of other stand-up comedy because when you hang out with people, you kind of pick up things they say or kind of things they do or sort of like little hints of their sense of humor that adds to like what you do. And you might not always mean to have that happen, but it just subconsciously kind of influences you, and sometimes good ways, sometimes bad ways. But I don't want any influence from any other hunting podcast if I can help it. And sometimes coincidences happen, like other shows do. Like you guys do a rapid fire, we kind of do a rapid fire too, and that's just kind of what it is. But
right,
I don't listen to a lot of hunting podcasts, but I listen to a lot of other podcasts.
Right, I'm with you. I don't like to listen to a lot of other hunting podcasts too because I don't want to subconsciously steal their idea or steal their guest or their concepts, or I don't want my show to look anything like anybody else's. Mm-hmm. And I think subconsciously I probably would do that.
Yeah, it'd be hard not to, right? I mean, it's because podcast is kind of a deep thing, it's people that are really into podcasts kind of have the way I kind of explain it is podcast fans are like the following of like an underground punk band. Like not everyone listens to podcasts, but the people that do are pretty hardcore about it.
That's true. That's very true. Like it's all underground for the most part from what I see, especially in the hunting world. Like, yeah, I don't think there are any hunting podcasts that have really gone mainstream yet, including Rinella. Yeah. I can't even put Rinella there yet.
But what is mainstream, though, for hunting podcasts at the same time? Where is that bar? Because I've thought about that, too. And I'm like, because I feel like, you guys, Big Buck Registry has been a staple name in hunting podcasts for, a long time. And, I don't know. I guess mainstream podcast, I don't know what mainstream hunting podcast. I don't really know what it'd be considered. I would say like Wired to Hunt would be mainstream.
I think he's probably as close as you can get to mainstream. I'd even put Rinella as close as you get. I put Rinella just a bit above Mark. But the whole category, and here's where I'm defining this. If you go into iTunes and you go into the featured outdoor collection, Rinella's higher ranked than a lot of the shows that's in that group. So is Wired Hunt. So is...
There's Nine Fingers is up there, Nine Finger Chronicles.
Yep, Brian Call, his stuff. None of them, not a single one, not a single outdoor hunting podcast is in the outdoor category.
Yeah, which is weird, right? It really is.
The first time when we see one, I don't care who it is, the first one that cracks that code, the first one that cracks into that group, it's a win for outdoor hunting podcasts.
Yeah, that would be probably it for sure.
Then we're mainstream then. That's when I would consider that.
Okay, well, I see you there. I'm following you. What I was thinking like mainstream, I was thinking like mainstream in your niche, because we're a niche market essentially. Like we're hunting podcasts. We're not like the Joe Rogan podcast where anyone can tune in whether you hunt or not.
Right.
So I was kind of looking at as a scale of how mainstream a hunting podcast can get. I guess is kind of where my head was, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I don't know. I guess it'd be. I don't know. I guess it depend on your style of what you liked. I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever be mainstream, I guess, if you will.
I wouldn't think that a hiking podcast would be necessarily mainstream either, but it seems to be a heck of a lot more mainstream than a hunting show of any kind, no matter what it is.
You know what? When you said hiking podcast, I just picture like heavy breathing. Like someone talking while they're climbing a mountain. That's all I can think that would be like.
Well, that's what some of those are like. It's like you have these audio clips of people hiking up a mountain, rustling through leaves and breathing heavy. And say, "Ooh, boy, that sure was a tough mountain to climb." But that's in the mainstream iTunes categories for outdoor podcasts.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. It is.
There's probably an outdoor podcast in the mainstream for Subaru owners too, huh?
Probably. I haven't looked lately, but I would think it would be there. Or Cam Haynes, for example. Keep hammering. Another very popular, well-ranked outdoor podcast show, hunting podcast show, is not in the outdoor category.
See, that is weird. And I take that back. I guess the one hunting podcast I do dabble in a little bit is Steve Rinella, but Steve Rinella is more of like a history lesson and more of like a conservation. His episodes cover all things, but that's why I listen. I listen for those. I don't listen to all episodes, but I like to hear him tell stories about, the Wild West and the old pioneers and stuff like that. That's where I listen to the episodes.
Right. And I think a lot of people are there with you. I think that's very normal. Those are the people that listen to Steve, and that's why they listen to Steve.
Yeah.
For those history lessons in conservation and land use and all that stuff that Steve covers so well. That's why you tune into him.
For sure. And I would vote. Honestly, I think a lot of people would agree. I would vote Steve Rinella to be the president and the official spokesperson of hunting.
Right.
I love that guy so much.
Right.
He's so well spoken. He's intelligent. He writes books. And he's real though. You know what I mean? He's not afraid to cut up and drink beer and cuss and just be real about things. But he's also can represent himself very professionally when it's needed.
Right. You ever feel that when you're doing a show that you're coming in too canned? Like you're trying to be too professional and you just want to loosen up. I don't get that from you guys. You guys tend to just be loose and have fun.
No, I don't feel like I'm trying to be too professional really ever. It's weird, right? Because if you don't know a guest personally, you want to be respectful. If say we have a guest on, sometimes we don't have a guest, sometimes we do have a guest. So it's like when we have a guest on our show, if we don't know them at first, it takes a minute to get warmed up a little bit. But Stephen Muller, my co-host at Working Class Bowhunter, that guy just doesn't care. He knows everyone. He's friends with everyone. Doesn't know a stranger on this planet. The most outgoing personality ever. So when he just breaks the ice and people are kind of like, okay, I kind of get what they're like, and that helps a lot. So we can kind of just do what we want, but it's we don't take ourselves seriously, but we take our hunting seriously. So I guess someone that listens to our podcast that wants to be super serious all the time might not enjoy our show, but like we kind of mix everything up, like serious talk about hunting. We'll get deep, talk about tactics, tips, the everything. We try to cover everything, but keep it comfortable and easy listening, I guess is
right
where I'm going with all that. But
it is funny. Like Dusty, for example, is just a funny, laid back goofball. Like he loves to have fun, and he is so good in a crowd, and he'll work the crowd, and he'll have 100 friends out of 100 by the end of the night.
That's how Steve is, man. It's like the same exact person. Yep. But it's cool though. You got to have that guy.
Oh, I love it because that's not me. I'm not that guy, but he is. And what's fantastic and what's amazing, like you just mentioned, is that when the hunt kicks in, he goes from goofy to what I think is perhaps the most focused individual I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Like he hits this trance where you're just kind of goofing off, telling jokes, to absolute hardcore, don't breathe because there's a deer coming kind of guy.
That's cool though, man. I mean, it shows he's focused, or he's serious about what he does, but he knows when to be in hunting camp, and that's important,
right?
And I guess I'm kind of, like how you said, you're not that way. Like I'm the same way as I would say you are. Then I can't go somewhere where I don't know anyone and walk out knowing everyone. Like we'll go to a bar at a hunting show or convention with Steve, like me, Steve, and Eric will walk in, and then we'll know everyone in the bar by the end of the night because of Steve. And I'll talk if someone approaches me or if I somehow like end up in conversation about hunting or whatever, but I won't go out of my way to talk to everyone. But I'll joke around and everything, but I take my hunting very seriously. And Steve's he's harder to focus, but when he wants to accomplish something, he'll do it.
Gotcha. You're right. I think they might be the same person. That's crazy.
Pretty close. Yeah. I'd be scared to get them all together, which that might happen maybe at ATA.
Right.
It'll be a good time.
We will. I think it's overdue.
It really is, man.
So what other podcast do you listen to if you don't listen to hunting podcasts?
I listen to a lot. Well, not a lot, but I have a lot in my subscription list. Fighter and the Kid is probably my favorite podcast right now.
Okay.
With Brian Callen and Brendan Schwab about fighting, and they talk about a little bit of everything. I have different guests on, but the only sport I watch is fighting, so they break fights down and stuff like that, and good humor. Joe Rogan Experience I'm big on, and I listen to like Aubrey Marcus, talks a lot about like spiritual journeys and stuff like that, and Joey Diaz, The Church of What's Happening Now. They're pretty edgy podcasts, but it's when I'm traveling for work, it keeps me entertained. A lot of before anyone dives in, it's a lot of like they talk about doing drugs and just all sorts of crazy like mind expanding type stuff, which I find super interesting because it makes for a great podcast because they take it into the deep end of whatever you're talking about, so it just keeps you interested. It's not it's just super relaxed, and and I enjoy it. I think it's funny.
It kind of reminds me, like some of these podcasts, it kind of reminds me of what magazines used to be, especially the ones that you wouldn't necessarily find on a shelf because they're too raunchy. For example, the magazine that basically spawned Jackass, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that documentary on Netflix, but it's like that. And some of them are hardcore, some of them are pretty mainstream. I tend to.
It's exactly like that, man.
It's exactly like that. Like you're part of this cult of sorts.
Like Thrasher skateboard magazine's kind of that way, or was. Like Thrasher's known, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Thrasher skateboard magazine. I grew up skateboarding BMX and hunting, and it was that way. Like pretty gnarly guys it still kind of is that way, but back in the day, especially, pretty gnarly guys were from Thrasher. And it's the same way. I guess I don't know. No. Maybe that's accurate. But if you were a fan of skateboarding at all, you were, if any listeners out there ever grew up skateboarding or BMX, and you knew all about Thrasher or the old props, bike videos and stuff like that. Yep. Kind of all the same culture.
The Jackass spawned from Big Brother magazine. Mm-hmm. That's where they all did their antics, and it was all based off of a skateboard crowd, very niche-y, very underground Kind of reminds me of podcasting in a sense.
You know, I never thought about that before this the show here that we're recording, but it really is in a weird way. There's ways that it's related, but there's a lot of people still that when I talk to them, they're like, "Oh yeah, you have a podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, Working Class Bowhunter." Like, check it out. They're like, "Well, what's a podcast?" Like, it's like an internet radio show. Like, there's still people that are like, "What's a podcast?" I'm like,
right.
Well, you listen to radio? Yeah, you know, like Bob and Tom? Yeah. Well, imagine like Bob and Tom, but you can listen anytime you want about anything you want to listen whenever you want for free.
Right.
And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's welcome to the future. Let me see your iPhone. I'll show you the app.
It's the wave of the future. Both the television will be digital, radio will be digital, everything will be digital that we do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you know, everyone has a podcast now, and I guess in the last 6 months, there's been so many hunting podcasts popping up, and it's kind of like, dang, everyone's got one now. Like, I'd say like hunting shows, it's getting to be that point. You know, there's so many hunting shows, and now there's so many hunting podcasts that it's
right.
You know, it's becoming a crowded market. Which whatever it is, what it is. Well, what's your opinion on that?
About the podcasts, or
yeah, do you think good or bad that all the hunting podcasts popping up?
I think we're getting washed out. I think there's a lot. It's not as unique as it once was. Everybody's figuring out how to do it.
Yeah.
That being said, I think it challenges those that are more popular to do it better, to get more interesting content.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to separate yourself because some people never figure out the audio quality stuff. You know, they'll never figure it out.
A lot of people don't want to make the jump to buy good mics,
right,
and play.
Yep.
You know,
and stuff will fade in and out. People will try us like just can't stay consistent. I mean, two things that have to happen. Number one, I think audio quality is important. Number two is consistency.
Yep, absolutely.
After that,
consistency is key, man, too, because how is anyone going to follow your show, and how are you going to grow if you release an episode every three months?
Right, exactly. So now the question becomes, well, everybody's following the same format. Everybody's gone out and interviewed the same people over and over. Mm-hmm. Now what do you do? How do you make your show more interesting than the next guy?
Yep.
That's going to be the challenge.
Well, the thing is that what's going to happen with this flooded market of hunting podcasts, and, you know, I assume our listeners on our show are only hunters. You know, I don't know why a non-hunter would listen to a show called The Working Class Bowhunter or The Big Buck Registry. I mean, maybe they do to just get educated. That's awesome if they do.
But I don't think they do. But you're right.
I don't think they do either. But what's going to set certain shows apart would be like your show and our show is the personalities that make up your show. You can't duplicate a personality. And then, to be honest with you, there's a lot of people that can't. If they're faking a personality, or they're faking this, or faking knowledge, or doing this, and you're going to find out in their show, because if they do enough shows, someone can't bolt 200 episodes of an hour an episode through interviews and conversation, and it's just, you'd have to be a really good con artist to, you know what I mean, like to kind of make the show work. If you didn't have what it take to be like, you don't have that unique personality, it's hard to fake that, you know. So if you don't have that initially, you know, that's, I guess, I don't know if my point's clear or not, but like our dynamics between our show and your show, you can't duplicate it.
You
can't. It's hard.
Right. You have to, I mean, you're being yourself, you're being a natural person, you're not being authentic to yourself and to the craft, but you can't, if you don't have the right group, it won't be that interesting.
That too, and if you're just awkward, no one's going to want to listen to an hour of it.
Right. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, those uncomfortable pauses. You can't listen to an hour of that. There's something that's just like click, go to the next show.
It's tough. I don't touch our shows when we record them. What gets said on our shows, I'd leave it. That's what's there, unless I think I've edited. Like when I say edited, had to cut out what was said maybe on like 1 or 2 episodes, and that's it. And that's only because the person was like, hey, I didn't want that on there.
Right.
I won't say who that is, but it's I'm like, yeah, man, I'll do that for you, whatever. Normally we don't, but I'm like, I don't know, maybe we're different because of that, where we just, whatever happens on the show, that's what happens, so we just run it that way.
Well, that's cool. I mean, and generally speaking, that's what happens on our show, although I've had calls after the fact says, I wish I hadn't said that, can you cut that?
I get it, man. I understand that.
Right. And
I can say something stupid right now, and
I respect that. And then that's always an open thing. It happens rarely, and if they're listening to the show, they know who they are, because it's only happened once or twice.
Well, big shout out to whoever they are.
That's right.
I feel your pain.
So you're a you're an old skateboarder.
BMXer typically.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell me about your childhood.
Man,
all in Illinois kind of thing, or is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Grew up and I was born in Watsega, Illinois, which is like near Champaign, Urbana area. And I grew up in Hampton, Illinois, which is like right on the Mississippi, northwest Illinois, kind of about an hour from Peoria, like Central State.
All right.
My dad hunted when he was young, but like in my younger years, I wasn't really around hunting, but always around like something outdoors. Like all my activities were outside, that type of thing. And then my dad, basically I rode BMX, got into BMX hardcore, like rode my bike every day, absolutely obsessed.
Yep.
And when I got to be the age where I could start getting interested in hunting, my dad's like, I'm going to get back into hunting. We're going to start deer hunting. And then it basically, I don't even really recall. I just remember all of a sudden being obsessed with it. And at a young age, probably, like 9, 10, 11, like full blown obsessed with hunting, with deer, everything, and BMX at the same time. And I remember riding my bike and we'd be riding trails in the woods and stuff. And I'd be like, all right, guys, October 1st is coming up. I'm done riding until next spring. And all my buddies are like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm going bow hunting. Like I just became obsessed with it. So
really?
There was always that balance. Like, hey guys, I'm disappearing. All my free time is bow hunting and I'm putting my bike down until spring. And that's just kind of how it was until, through high school, I maybe started to figure it out enough or get enough experience where I was killing deer consistently. And then the bike riding kind of faded out and archery kind of faded in, where the bike riding normally would have been, you know what I mean? So
how old were you when that started to fade towards archery?
I rode my bike super consistent till I got my license. Like probably 17, my bike riding was like really diminished. And then archery got more serious. Not like on the tournament side of things, but shoot my bow consistently and becoming obsessed with kind of just learning and perfecting my craft. And I don't know, full blown obsessed with hunting and just whitetails. And then started to get more and more obsessed with accuracy probably in the last 5 years.
Yep.
So it's just like that's a pretty quick summary, but I don't know, when you're 15 and you kill your first buck with a bow, and I just can't, I'm hooked, man. And it's been that way ever since. And it's my obsession's to the point where it affects my personal life. Like I'll blow people off because it's November. It's like, don't call me. I don't want to do anything. I'm hunting.
Right.
And it's almost like, man, okay, whatever, man. I'll see you in January.
Right. What do you do now, like at this time of year? What are you getting prepped for?
Right now, I'm in a weird spot because I travel for work. So I'm home now. So I'm hanging stands. I picked up a new parcel of property that me and my dad are hanging stands on, and cameras, and that whole typical spiel. I don't have the property where I can put food plots on. So it's a lot of hanging stands, thinking through strategies, what I'm going to do, and then I'll be on the road for a long time for work. So it's kind of rush now, get everything prepped for when I come home and can hunt. So
gotcha.
Right now, getting everything ready and shooting my bow a lot with my wife. So
let me run this by you. I don't know if you any of your crew wear glasses.
No. Nope.
I wear glasses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And last year I bought a new bow. Bought a Mission Hype DT.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have a spare bow. It turns out that it was better than the Matthews that I was shooting because my Matthews is sold.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one of those guys that upgrades their bow every year or anything like that. I look at it as a tool. If it's working, it's killing deer, it's fine. So it's all I need.
Right.
I love all the new gear. I think it's awesome.
A lot of people have your mindset too, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Right.
Right.
So I go to shoot this bow last fall, and I couldn't hit the target in a consistent manner to save my life. And I went and got some better arrows, seemed to help, but it wasn't as I remembered it being from my other bow. And
right.
I thought, sure, I'd be spot on. And I really didn't bow. I took one shot last year at a doe, and I missed low. Like that just doesn't seem right.
Right.
Everything was in focus. It should have hit right in the kill zone, and it didn't. It went low. I think it hit a stick, but still, it just didn't. It should have gone higher. And so I was flustered. Put the bow down for the season.
Mm-hmm.
Used the gun the rest of the season. So
come on.
I know, right? Telling the working class bowhunter guy.
I'm like over here. I'm like, Jay.
I know.
Come on.
Well, the story gets better. March comes around, and my glasses are getting a little scratchy, and then I had bought glasses back in 2013 through one company. Then I bought a cheap set somewhere early last year, and they started to kind of fall apart because they were cheap. I shouldn't have bought the cheap ones.
Right.
It was those glasses I was using to shoot this brand new bow last year. Right. I get new glasses in March. Still haven't touched the new bow. I pick up the new bow to start shooting this month for the first time in a while.
Jay.
I know, right? I think that whole thing like kind of got me.
Right.
I can't miss the bullseye now. New glasses cannot miss the bullseye.
Huh. Was this like different, like the magnifier is changing your eye anchor from your peep to your sight housing?
Had to be something like that. When I put these glasses on, it felt like the earth lit up. Like there was so much light and vibrancy coming in through these new glasses. Like I can't wait to pick up my bow now.
Dang, you know what I'd be doing if I were you?
What's that?
LASIK eye surgery. Immediately.
I tried that, and the part of my cornea is too thin or something like that. They said I wasn't a candidate.
Damn, tough luck, huh?
Tough luck. So anyway, my point is that sometimes if you wear glasses and you're not a consistent archer hitting the bullseye, maybe change your glasses. It may not be what. And I had a similar experience with golf. If I wore a certain pair of sunglasses, I couldn't hit the ball to save my life. So I'd always go back to my other glasses, and I'd hit it fine.
Right.
It's a visual thing, and you don't think about that much.
Well, it seems deep, like when you're like, oh, man, yeah, but it's not, though. It's right. It's the first thing.
It's the first thing. It's the fundamentals, right? If you can't see the target the right way, how are you ever going to see it? What if the refraction in your glasses aren't right? You're never going to hit the bullseye, no matter where you're at. Then you start questioning yourself. Have I lost it? Have I lost it? Is my arm gone bad? Is there something in my technique? What on earth can this be? Well,
that's a good point, because part of archery, a major part of archery is it's a mental game. And I always tell my wife when we shoot together, I'm like, okay, oh yeah, I'm getting tired. Like, that point. All archers know that point when you're shooting in the yard or wherever at the range and you're practicing and you're just putting it all in. You're focusing, you're trying to pull through your shot how you should, and that it wears on you trying to do that 30, 40 shots in a row, and when you're into your last 5 shots,
right,
and you're getting tired. And my wife will say that, I'm starting to shake a little bit, I'm getting tired. I'm like, one more arrow, if it's in the dot, quit, because if you try to shoot through that fatigue, you're going to just blow your confidence out the window, and that is not good in an archery game. Because if you go hunt, say it's hunting season today, and you shoot good, but you end up shooting at the very end, your last 5 arrows you shoot like because you're tired. Your confidence is going to be diminished, and you're going to make a poor shot on your next hunt. That's my theory.
Right, and that's what happened. I went in. My confidence was diminished. I couldn't get the target to sight in. I was eventually getting them, but even and that was with the upgrade in the arrows. I went back to my old arrows and my new glasses, and the old arrows were better than anything I had in my previous bow. So confidence,
it's crazy, man.
Confidence is restored. I cannot wait to shoot my bow daily now, and now I can't wait for the season to start.
Kind of on the same topic, sort of, not really. As far as confidence in shooting, I just got some lighted nocks for the first time, and I shoot a single pen sight, which is I absolutely love it. And I put these lighted nocks on, and I started shooting. And I'm on press time before I start traveling again for work, which absolutely sucks. But
right,
working class bowhunter, you got to do what you got to do to get it done. So I'm practicing with these lighted nocks, and my arrows, dude, I can't group nothing with these arrows.
Gotcha.
With a lighted nock. I don't know what it is. My wife puts them on her arrows. I probably need more front of center on my arrows or whatever it may be. Her arrows fly great, but I'm not gonna mess with it. I put my regular nocks back on, and I'm 100% confident and accurate with my regular nocks. That is, and so I guess my wife just got more lighted nocks. So if you buy lighted nocks, make sure you shoot with them because they will fly different.
Yeah, I think you change any component of arrow, you got to reshoot it, right?
Yep. I think people don't think about that, though, sometimes. Most people do. The experienced hunters and archers do. But there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, I just got these new broadheads. I just slapped them on and went out to the woods. I'm like, whoa, dude, you got to shoot those things first. You can't just hope they fly right, Not
going to happen. I've been there. I've done that. But where I screwed up was I thought I did shoot them, and I didn't, and it didn't work.
Man, it's a broadhead that I recommend that I've been shooting. I like Schwackers a lot, but the Muzzy Trocar, the HBs,
yep,
the hybrids, those fly so great. I absolutely love those arrows. Are those broadheads?
I've always been a Muzzy guy for a long time.
Me too.
And I can't seem to break away. I don't know why. I just like my Muzzies.
It's classic, man. It works. Like, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel?
Right.
You know, if you hit something with a Muzzy, like a 3-blade or 4-blade, you hit bone, it's gonna do some damage.
Right.
I mean, it's gonna work, and that's what I like about the Trocar HB. It's got 2 fixed blades and it's got 2 expandable blades, so it's cut no matter what.
Right.
And it flies good. It's low profile and it's got a good cutting diameter. And I shot 2 deer with it last year and no tracking issues whatsoever. And sometimes you're gonna have issues with any broadhead if you don't make a good shot, but it's
right.
That's my experience. I'm looking forward to using them again this year.
Yeah,
So, and I've had good luck with schwackers too. So
they're all decent in their own way. I think there's so many that are good, but just can't break out of my Muzzy pattern. It's never frustrated me. For example.
No, I hear you, brother. I don't blame you.
When did you decide to start a podcast?
It was several years ago now, probably 4 years ago now, when I started thinking about it. We've been doing our podcast for about 2.5 years roughly. And I just listened to podcasts a lot back in the day. And I'm like, oh, I'll look for some hunting podcasts. And I couldn't really find anything at the time that I could really get into. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just start my own. That'd be kind of cool, you know?
All right.
And I was doing some small internet bow hunting like film project with a group of guys at the time, and I was bored to death with it. And we had the page, and this Steve followed me on Twitter because of that little internet bow hunting project that we were doing. And it was pretty cool while it was happening, but it diminished over time. Well, I left, and then I don't think it just fell apart, whatever. But I tweeted something about wanting to get into podcasting, and I didn't even know Steve at the time. And he's like, hey, man, I do a comedy podcast in Davenport, which is Davenport, Iowa, which is right across the Mississippi here.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I do a comedy podcast with a group of guys that's called the Good Sirs Podcast. If you want, come on over, because he was just getting into hunting at the time. And he's like, if you want to come on over and sit in on the podcast, be a guest on our show, see what it's like, and then you can decide if you like it or whatever. I'm like, okay, go over there. They had like the cool hidden bookshelf where that slides out of the way, and the studio's in the background, like, in the back hidden room.
Really?
And
that's awesome.
yeah, all this crazy equipment. I guess this guy who hosted that podcast like rented his studio out and hosted several other podcasts through there. And I sat in on that. I mean, they were, besides Steve, none of those guys hunted, or they were just straight city boys, but I had a great time. I'm like, it was pretty cool, and
yeah.
I'm like, well, let's dive into it. I'll do it. And Steve heckled me for like, I don't know, almost a year, 6-8 months, probably half a year at least, about, dude, let's get this going. He's like, I'll help you out. I'll be your co-host. And finally, I'm just like, all right, kind of threw in the towel on that hunting internet project, and we just kind of went all in. That's kind of how my podcasting journey all started.
That's cool, man. What about the working class part? Do you consider yourself working class?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Every one of us, me, Eric, and Steve, are hosts of the show, and yeah, we're all working class. I work for John Deere, product development.
Wow.
Working on farm equipment and combines and all sorts of stuff like that, and completely blue collar. Name on the shirt, blue collar, I guess you could say. A lot of people would relate to that. Some people have their name on a desk, some people's names on their shirt, and that's the category I fall in. And then Eric, he's been a welder. He's worked at John Deere Harvester Works, the factory here in Moline, and Eric's done all. Eric's just can do anything you want. Eric can make it, and he's working class to the bone. And Steve works for a heating and air company, moving AC units and driving trucks and all that. So we're all working class to the bone, and we like to relate to that market because that's really what a lot of us are. We're at work, we'd rather be bow hunting than at work, and we kind of like being that show where people can listen to us at work and get their fix for bow hunting until they get off to go shoot their bow or go chase critters wherever they're at.
Gotcha. Very cool. What about the comedy part? Do you guys think of yourselves, especially where Steve's coming in from comedy, do you consider yourselves comedians of sort?
Wow, that's a funny question, or a good question too. No, I don't. Steve is a comedian, no doubt. Like he does active stand-up comedy locally. Like he does stand-up shows, which he's absolutely hilarious. But I No, I just consider us having fun in hunting camp, man. I would never consider myself a comedian ever. And I don't know. I don't even know if Steve actually considers himself a comedian. I just think he likes to have fun and laugh.
Gotcha.
I've never been asked that before. I didn't know how to answer that. I never really thought about
good.
it.
I'm glad I'm making you uncomfortable. This is good.
No, this is good.
This is very good.
Make me uncomfortable. Let's see how weird this gets.
What was your best show? It's hard to say a best show because I can't say I had a best show, but there's certainly some that I like more than others, and some I can't say that either. I learned something from every single person.
Yeah.
Are there unique situations or things that you learned that really stick out in your head? Like you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm talking about this.
Man, we've done so many, and I know you guys have too, that it's hard for certain ones to stand out. I mean, I have shows afterward, I'm like, man, that was great. And it's a lot with our buddy, like a lot of our local buddies that are from Respect the Game TV on Sportsman Channel. A lot of those guys are relatively local here. Like any episode with like Ross Bigger from Respect the Game or Clark Cummins from Respect the Game, they drop some just deep whitetail knowledge on us, and it's awesome. I love getting into that. They have like different perspectives on like wind change direction and all this, and how setting up stands a certain way, and just all the way down to like when to harvest does, when not to harvest does. That we'll just dive in a deep conversation like that, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. Like I'm so glad you went into that topic, and it's the deep whitetail podcasts are my favorite. So anything with Clark, Ross, Austin Chandler, but it's hard I can't pick one, man, because then I also love our podcast we do with Darren Christianberry from Elite Archery, because I love hearing about his knowledge of archery and how he breaks it down, and that guy's just such a good person and breaks down the sport. And then we'll have a podcast like what we just recorded with the boys from NODR, or we'll T-Bone, we'll just joke around with him. And some podcasts are super loose and some are all business, but we have fun on every one. So I can't pick one, man. There's just so many and I feel like so many good interviews we've done that I just love them all.
What's your most downloaded one?
Probably people love Jared Scheffler, man. I would say
they do, don't they?
Dude, people from Wisconsin are diehard about everything they do, man. And it's I would say Jared Scheffler podcasts always do well. Like that's the one that sticks out to me the most. He was like our first big guest we had on the show, so maybe that might be why I remember like that's the first thing that pops out. But man, I would say that's the first one that pops in my head. The big names always do well, right. But it's people love Jared Scheffler, man. That guy has a hardcore following. When you talk about like underground punk band type following, that guy's got it.
That's right.
He's got the underground following down.
You ever had any surprises on your show, or surprise success with the show as far as downloads are concerned?
Yeah, actually. One we recorded, I don't know how long it's been now, maybe a month, a little over. We did a podcast all about Bill Busbice.
I saw that in the list, yeah.
And I was like, I recorded that episode and we went way off on it, like deep, like
right.
Deep as in ripped him bad.
Right.
And I'm like, man, people are not going to like this episode. Like they're not going to be accepting of it. Like we went too hardcore on it. It's just not going to go over well. And then, cause we didn't have a guest on the show, we just tore into it. And, people were like, dude, you guys just took the words right out of my mouth. Like we've got more messages on that show than any other show we've probably ever done, because I think we got a lot of people that listen to our show to actually write in for that one, because it struck a deep passion in all of us when you see somebody do something dirty like that, and it really pissed off our community. So I think a lot of people that normally listen to the show felt the need to write in and be like, "Hey, man, like I was thinking the same thing," which that sort of surprised me.
Right, interesting. One of our surprises that we had was actually with a fellow by the name of Cameron Coble, and ironically, Cameron is the self-proclaimed blue-collar deer hunter.
Oh, really?
That thing shot through the roof, and it seemed to hit a nerve. I don't know if it's a nerve because our audience is full blue-collar, or if just hunters in general tend to be blue-collar. It's pretty. I never think of hunters as white-collar.
No, you never really do.
Never do. I'm sure it crosses some lines. Might find some white-collar lifestyles that are actually going hunting, but maybe that's more safari-ish.
Right. I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But that one actually took off through the roof. Dan Infalt did pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Shockey did well. Waddell did well. And then recently, the Fred Bird one did extremely well. It blew all of them away. I have no idea why. I'm sure Fred might be listening to this, and I still haven't gotten to the bottom of it, but the downloads went way higher than Waddell, and it's puzzling to me.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. And Fred is not, I mean, he's a great guy, and he's well known inside his community, but he's not nationally known like Waddell.
Maybe in his area, or a lot of people just got caught on to it. And
I don't know. I'm still trying to get to the bottom, and Fred wants to know too. He's like, "Man, am I really that much more popular than Waddell?" Like, I don't know, Fred. I can't figure this out. Most of them
that's
are
awesome though,
coming from California. So why? What's the connection? I don't know.
The antis.
It could be the anti. They're sneaky.
They are. They're trying to gain knowledge. Like, we're gonna get some insight here on the Big Buck Registry to use against them.
That's right.
If you want stuff to use, our show would be the one to listen to.
Is that right?
No, I don't know. We just get loose, man. We just don't care. So we'll just talk about whatever we want, you know.
Right.
And
that's awesome.
So,
I mean, that's really what I love about your show. And I don't, we don't talk a ton, but when people ask me, like, what shows do you like? Like, when it comes down to hunting shows, I always mention your show because I think it's just kind of the shows that I do listen to.
Appreciate that, man.
They're entertaining. I just think they're free, and there's no rigid agenda. There's always a topic, but it's not like you're molded into being a certain way. You're free form. It's awesome.
Right, and I appreciate that, man. I definitely do, and that's kind of what we want our field to be like, and it's effortless, honestly, for us because we hit the record button and we just go. And we joke around, like when we have to be serious, we throw in, like, I don't know, like our ads. Sometimes our poor sponsors, man. If you listen to some of the ads we do at the beginning, we make them quick, but if we figure if we're going to make our listeners listen to ads for who we're sponsored by that supports our show and helps our show along, we're going to make it entertaining. There's certain podcasts that are sponsored by, like, Me Undies, which is an underwear company. And it's like, well, if you're just cut and dry talking about underwear, that's going to be boring as hell. But if you make it funny, if you can make talking about underwear funny in 1,000 different ways, that's hilarious. Right. So we kind of do that with, like, Scent Crusher is one of our sponsors.
Right.
And you can imagine with Steve how many things that we can talk about with Scent Crusher and make it funny. But we just don't take ourselves too seriously, man. But we still try to get the job done and then doing a good interview and getting something out of it at the same time.
That's cool. That's very cool. Let's talk some more deer hunting. You said that you're getting prepped up and shooting your bow, and what I mean, you live in an area that I'm sure is one of a better whitetail part of the country.
Yep.
What do you plan for? What's your style of hunting? How do you get ready?
My style of hunting, man, is I try not to overcomplicate things. Is you get a lot of guys, and they're not wrong by any means, but you get a lot of guys that come in and it almost seems like they're making a football play where it's like, well, the moon's doing this. We got to come in this way and do it that way, which is all good, and that's fine. I do that too. I take my precautions, but I kind of make it simple. Where am I going in? Where am I exiting? And then I have my thing is working class bowhunter on a budget type of thing. Like, I buy cheap hang-on stands, and I almost exclusively hunt out of hang-on stands. And my strategy is to have a stand for every situation. If the wind's doing this, I have a stand for it. If I don't have a stand for it already, I always have one in my truck ready to go to hang and hunt one. And that might not be the answer you wanted, but I just stay super simple. If I'm seeing deer over there and I know the wind's doing this and I can get in there without putting too much pressure on an animal and changing his pattern, I'm going to get in there and get after it and throw a stand up and do it. And I think that's a lot of people are too scared to get aggressive that way. And sometimes you can't be. Sometimes you got to let things play out, but that's how I've killed most of my deer is hang the stand, get in it, and hunt and shoot a deer. That's what I did last year in my buck. I had south winds, and this new property I got, I didn't have a south wind stand yet. Hung a stand and killed a deer the next morning. So it's...
You sound like you took a piece right out of Dan Infalt's playbook.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I'm actually not familiar with Dan. I need to probably start following him then,
You need to be familiar with Dan Infalt. Yes. That's probably the one that everybody is like, I can't get enough. Super intelligent guy. Yeah.
I'm sure I would know him if I saw him or heard him or something like that. I'd be familiar, but off the top of my head, I don't. I will definitely get familiar though.
Yeah. You start by listening to our interview with him.
I will do that.
And better yet, after you listen to that, go to the live show that we did with Dan Infalt.
Okay.
On YouTube or Facebook, and people are so tuned into Dan Infalt's stuff and the way he hunts, and it's a little different, but his concept is to keep them guessing. Never, kind of like Sam Hubel in a way.
Mm-hmm. Good dude.
Very good dude. Go in deep where the deer go when they're so pressured that nobody else wants to go. Go get wet. Go get muddy. Yep. Then put up a tree stand on anything you can and surprise the heck out of them. Mm-hmm. That's how you kill big deer.
It is, man. And that's the thing. Like, it blows my mind and I talk to guys. I hung a ladder stand Saturday, and that was the first ladder stand I've hung in, probably 2000 since I was like 14. That was probably the last time me and my dad put a ladder stand up. And I'm almost only hang on. And I'm a tree stand junkie and I'm a trail camera junkie. Yep. So, but if I see a hang on sale, I'm like, I'm buying it. I need it. And I might not actually need it, but I buy it anyway. And then I always have one in my truck. And I set this ladder stand up, and I told some of my buddies that hunt out of ladder stands, I'm like, why the hell do you guys hunt out of ladder stands? You cannot get where you want to be. You can't pack it in and throw it up. And like, I can throw hang-ons up in the dark and hunt easy. And you can't do that with a ladder stand. You can't pack a ladder stand in and throw it up by yourself.
You can't.
It really limits you to how successful you could be. And the funny thing is, a lot of guys that I know, this is just me personally, it may not be the case everywhere, the guys that only exclusively hunt out of ladder stands don't kill deer, or don't kill a lot of deer, or don't kill the deer they wish they would kill.
That's right.
And it drives me nuts a little bit. I'm like, man, if you would just kind of get out of your comfort zone, instead of going to that same tree every afternoon on a north wind for the last 4 years, you could be get a $50 hang on with a $30 set of sticks, and you can throw that baby up in 15 minutes and be hunting in a spot where a big buck's moving, that has been moving for the last 5 years, when you've been sitting in your ladder stand, and boom, you just surprised them.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's see, where I live, we tend to tune into when the snow flies. That's our favorite style of hunting for the most part. Mm-hmm. Not everybody in New England, but the New England way is to hunt when the snow flies, find the big track, follow that deer for as long as you go. We don't have to worry about wind. We don't do tree stands. It's gun hunting. So there's a lot of very rudimentary style to that. But when the snow isn't here, and it seems like there's less and less snow every year, we have to do these types of things. And now I've got a whole new, and this is why we do podcasts, right? Mm-hmm. I get so pumped up to go out deer hunting because I get to listen to all these amazing deer hunters from across the country tell me how to go hunt.
Yep.
That I'm like, I have never thought of that style before. I've never thought of this concept. Why have I never done that? So now it's there's so much excitement to go do these other techniques when there's no snow, which often is the case till late in the season, or if I go north.
Yeah. But it's like the best direct advice you could ever get from the best deer hunters in the world, you know?
How can you go wrong with that? It's an amazing concept. So I get where you're coming from, and that so reminds me of Dan Infalt's style of how to go and just surprise the deer. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I just think a lot of it's overthought, and it doesn't really need to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
To me, it's just right there. It's just writing on the wall. It's like, this is what you got to do. And if you want to do it every year, and even if you hunt, like I killed my deer last year on a really small piece of ground, and you just can't. It's low pressure, but at the same time be aggressive, which doesn't make sense, but it almost does. I don't know how to explain that. And don't be an idiot. Don't just walk through your ground and think that you're not doing any harm. You know, when you go in somewhere, move with reason, just like a big buck. Big buck doesn't move without a reason.
Right.
So if you're going in an area, go in with a strategy, but make it a simple strategy. You know, it's cut in this way, hang, and get in there and hunt. And the wind's right, and you're in the right spot, it'll happen.
Gotcha. Let's talk about your stand. You say you pop in, you pop out. What kind of stand are you using, and how do you pop in and pop out? And this might be some concepts that we've covered before, but I want to hear it from your perspective. These are hang-ons, it sounds like. You're not getting in there in a climber, for example, or are you?
No, climbers aren't out of the question. My dad is like the climber tree stand king. My dad's killed some studs out of a climber. I'm more just hang on with sticks, like stick sections. What I like now, currently, they're cheap. They're not the lightest, but you can do it, is the River's Edge grip sticks.
Okay.
And you can find them anywhere. I got them on Amazon. I bought a box of 12 for like $160. And we do 4 sticks to a hang on, and my dad and I will always carry 4 screw-in steps if we need it. Might not always need it. And I'll gap those sticks apart as far as possible and get up 20 plus feet with them. Or what I'll do is I'll put 3 screw-in steps at the bottom and then start hanging my sticks. And when it comes to hang-ons, I hunt from everything from the worst, crappiest little big dog or cat or whatever the hell the brand is that you get at Menards and you put together and they're just tiny. I like small hang-ons. You can tuck them in wherever you need to.
Do you care about scent control?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you absolutely have to. Bow hunting, I'm almost exclusively just bow hunt. Yeah, scent control, 100%. And maybe I left that out when we talked about tactics, but I feel like that's just an obvious wind direction, going as scent free as possible. And I use Scent Crusher, man. Scent Crusher products have made it easy. So when you get that musty smell on your clothes from hiking in and hiking out and packing in the stand and hanging it and all that, that helps a lot. You don't got to wash your clothes every 2 days and fade your camo pattern. You can just throw it in your bag and the stuff works, man.
I love ozone. I think it's one of those cool devices that wasn't in play 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it seems to make everything smell normal. I don't know. It's just this weird thing.
I love it, man. And now when Steve comes over to my house for a podcast and he poops in my bathroom, I can put the Scent Crusher Ozone Room Clean in there and it gets rid of it. I'm like, oh, man. Okay. So saving money on air fresheners with the room clean.
That's right. Very cool. So I have to apologize to you. And I think I did publicly when we did a live show a while back, and I accidentally miscalled your podcast something else. I don't remember what it was. But I couldn't get the words out of my mouth. So this is the difference between podcasting and recording pre-recorded stuff in live, that you are on the spot, man, and everything you say has to be right. And
yeah,
it sucks. It sucks. So, but I couldn't. I don't know
man.
why.
I love that.
You were laughing, and I was like, I am so embarrassed right now.
Jared Scheffler was laughing. That's who was on the interview.
Was it Jared?
Yeah, I was watching for a bit, and I'm like, shout out Working Class Bowhunter or whatever. I don't remember what I said.
Right.
But it was funny. Jared was laughing. I was like, oh, yeah, I thought that was Curt, or I can't remember.
Curt. I can't. Yeah, because I couldn't. I don't know what I said, but I could not get Working Class Bowhunter out of my mouth to save my life. And
it's hilarious.
Sometimes it's on the tip of your tongue, and it just doesn't roll off your tongue at all. It's like it goes somewhere else.
Dude, no offense taken. I watched that. I'm like, he was in podcast zone. I know what that feels like. I thought it was so funny. And I think I fired back. What's the name of this show again?
You did. You got me back bad. Yeah, but it was what an interesting perspective it is when you're trying to be live and you're thinking about the next play, the next question, and you don't realize it's your turn. Whereas pre-recorded wouldn't matter, or when you have to be on video, it's a whole different game. And it's
no doubt
we're going to be doing some more of those in the fall, but right now they're on.
I enjoy those, man. I'll tune into those if I'm on Facebook, scroll through, I get the notification or whatever. If I have time to sit and watch your guys' interviews, I'll watch. I always try to say hi and pop in when I can, but
I saw that. I appreciate that. It's good to have some support from fellow podcasters, because sometimes I feel like we're on an island all by ourselves. And
it does feel that way sometimes, man. It's tough, but we got to stick together.
We do need to stick together. How about we go on a deer hunt? I asked you in the beginning to think of a memorable one. We've been talking for a while. I want to see if you had thought of a hunt that you've been on recently, or maybe it's not recently. Maybe it's an old one. And go play by play. Where are we going to go? Well,
there's two that popped in my mind. I won't cover both, but when you brought that up just now, the first one that pops in my head is the Geier buck, and I'm doing the whole air quote thing right now. The Geier buck is a buck my dad shot in 2004, and that was the one. He's the climber king. That's kind of where he got his name. He'd backpack in his climber and set up in certain areas that he'd kind of studied. And this is, pretty much before trail cams were big. And I'll just go real quick over this. He shot it's a mainframe 8-pointer that netted 183 and an eighth and grossed in the 191 as a mainframe 8.
Holy smokes.
27-inch beams, 13-inch G2s, just split brows, double drop kickers off its left G2, just a monster. And I was 14 when he shot that, and that was just kind of the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And that's something I'll never forget. That's just something that I cherish so deeply, that buck. And the story and just seeing my dad in that moment was pretty incredible. And I actually saw that deer a week before chasing a doe, probably like 300-400 yards from where he shot it. And just that story, that whole just story and just the feel of that moment in my hunting experience just sticks with me. But as far as like my own deer, I shot a buck in 2014 that has just the gnarliest G3 kicker that sticks straight off the G3, like going straight forward. It's just so weird because it doesn't split off. It's just straightforward. It was a buck that we had been seeing cross this almost like a service road. It was a gravel service road through an old like cell tower.
Yep.
When there was an old well back there, and this deer we'd see this deer in that area run this, but we didn't know exactly where it was coming from. Well, my dad at the time worked like an hour away, and I'm like, well, Dad, I'm going to move in on here, and I'm going to set up in there, and I think I know where this deer's coming out, and it's got to be in this pinch over here. I'm going to set up for it. So this is when I really started to kind of develop the plan of what I talked about earlier, is just get aggressive, throw a stand up, and hunt, and get after it. And that's what I did. I threw a lone wolf up and got in, and we were seeing this deer run this road at like right at daylight. Well, right in that time as the sun comes up pretty early. And I texted my dad to get to that point daylight. I'm like, hey, I haven't seen him. I think I missed him. He's coming out a different spot.
Yeah.
Well, he's like, just sit there. You never know. Just sit there. And I think like 20 minutes later, look back behind me, and there's this big ravine full of like CRP and just shale and just nasty stuff. And there's this doe up on this hill. And I look back, and there he is standing in the ravine. Like, this is from a distance. I'm talking like 500 yards out. And I'm like, oh, that looks like a good deer. I think that might be him. Well, this doe comes up on the hill and starts coming my direction. And I'm like, okay, this could work out, but he's so far away, like he could go anywhere, that he's glued to that doe.
Right.
Well, this doe, instead of cutting down towards me, she loops all the way around to the south of me, all the way around back in the timber, nowhere near me. And I'm like, well, that's shot. So I'm holding my bow at the time, sitting there. Well, what he does, he watches where she goes. He stops, watches, and then goes to cut her off, which is right in my path. So
nice.
This deer normally was going towards the road, and this doe did not go towards the road today and cut around me. So he's like, all right, I'm going this way. So he came to cut her off by coming within 30 yards of me. And he comes in just big, pearly white mainframe 8, and I'm trying to stop him. And he comes in 30 yards, Matt, doesn't stop. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm kind of in panic mode now. I got this buck here. He's out of my shooting lane. He's walking down this old mud log road, and I pick like a triangle pocket in the trees, and I'm like, there he is, quartering away, and like on instinct, just made it happen and hit him quartering away, and he just ran down this old service road, just laying it all out. And you can see his front legs getting lower and lower and lower and lower, and then disappears into the CRP. And I'm like, in the moment, you don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? It's like, I think it was a great shot. I don't know what happened. You always question yourself. You know what I mean? You know, it's like to be in that moment. You're like, I think it was good, but I don't know.
Right.
So I call my dad, and this is like 30 minutes later from the time I called him earlier, and I'm like, I think he's dead. So I'm like, I'm going to sit here for 30 minutes. I got down and pulled the stand down and left it on the ground. And I went back to my truck and sat in my truck for like 2 hours. And I'm like, I'm waiting because I'm not pushing it if he's not dead. And then I hike back in. This is quite a distance away from where my truck was parked. I go into the CRP, no blood. Move in. I'm like, okay, this will be the biggest buck I've ever shot with my bow at this time. And no blood. All of a sudden, I find a speck of blood, and it's in like mud, so it's hard to see anyway.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, here we go. Here's something here. Spot. And where he crossed gravel, I look up, and it looked like someone had just dumped a red can of paint just all over the road, just heart shot, just spewing. Tracking him, like, okay, he's dead. He's got to be dead. Keep going. Look up, and he's just laying right on this old spoil, just this old hump in the timber. And it looked like he was bedded almost, the way he was laying. And it was just, I don't know, the most incredible moment I've ever experienced of a deer of my own, just walking up on this thing. And he's a high 150s mainframe 8 with that kicker. Wow. And he's just a stud. I'll have to send you a picture of him. That was one of the most memorable hunts of my own that I've ever experienced. So
I can see why. That's a fantastic story. Very cool. All right, I've got 10 rapid fire questions for you. You ready for these?
Sorry for the long, drawn-out story.
No, that's what we like. We like long, drawn-out stories. That's why we're
Rapid
here.
fire away, brother.
All right, man. What's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Get aggressive. Don't be scared.
I like that one. That's very good. All right, we all have these things that we need to hunt with for whatever reason, whether it's actually a useful tool or something that makes us feel more successful. Maybe it's a good luck charm and drives you insane if you don't have it with you, if you leave it in the truck or leave it at home. What's that one thing for you?
Oh, that's tough. Oh, man, I don't know if I have one. I like to have a grunt tube, just in case.
Okay, that's a good one.
I panic answered.
You panic? That was a panic? Okay.
Panic answer.
That's fine. We'll take it.
There's probably a better one that I'm just not thinking of in the moment.
Oh, maybe you don't have one. Maybe you don't have one of those things like if you lose it, you just shut down.
Rangefinder.
Rangefinder.
Gotta have one.
Love those too. All right. What's your biggest pet peeve in life?
Anti-hunters.
That's so it's like spot on. Very good. All right. How old are you today, Curt?
I'm 26. I'll be 27 in like 2 weeks.
No kidding. All right. Knowing what you know today, what would you tell the 17-year-old Curt Geier?
Hang more stands. I don't know.
That's a good one. I like that. All right. You're at a hunting convention somewhere in the world, and a stranger comes up to you and asks you what you do for a living. What do you tell him?
I tell them exactly what I do for a living.
Okay.
I guess I don't know. I'm confused by that one, I guess.
Well, some people tell, you'd say what you do. Some people say, you speak in generalities, or you don't even try to carry on the conversation. You try to get out as fast as possible because it's a stranger. So just interesting to hear how you might respond to that.
Yeah, I don't know, realness. I find myself probably in a lot of conversations I shouldn't be in, probably for that reason.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
French toast.
Badass. Nice. All right. You get your own billboard on the side of a highway. It's a blank canvas. You can put anything you want on it. What would you put on that sign?
Eat more venison.
That's cool. I like that. All right. If I say the word successful to you, who's the first person that pops into your head and why?
For some reason, I don't know if there's any other reason, my buddy Ross Bigger is just, I look up to him. He's successful in all realms. He's on Respect the Game TV with Elite, on Sportsman Channel. He owns his own electrician company. He owns his own bow shop. He's just a good, genuine dude in life. He's likable. He's good to people. He helps people. And that's good. That's successful on all realms, in my opinion.
Very good. All right. What's a typical day in your life look like, dawn to dusk?
Right now, get up, go to work, wrench on green equipment, come home, shoot my bow, record podcasts with my best friends.
That's a good life, man. I like that. All right. When things get when they change it up during the season, what's a typical deer hunting day in your life look like?
Get up, figure out check the weather.
Right.
I have my apps, but I'm old school. I do the NOAA all-weather radio. I just hits home. It's like a classic childhood thing we always did in camp.
Okay.
Love it. Like that little robot voice, NOAA all-weather radio, just gives me chills because it reminds me of hunting camp when I was young.
Got one in my garage. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I love them. Hunt stand app. I check all that, see what stand looks good, if anything changed from the previous night. Get out, hunt, hustle after it. And my mind doesn't stray too far away from deer. And that's pretty much it, man. Keep hunting, come home, have a cool one with the boys, and get ready for the next hunt.
Very cool. Excellent. All right, that's the 10 rapid fire questions, man. You did quite well.
Awesome.
I don't think I embarrassed you too much on those, so that's good. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of embarrassed myself enough. That's hard.
You don't need help. You don't need help in that category.
No, I'm good. I don't need the assist.
All right. So Curt, this has been great, and I was wondering if you could share with us where we can find you after we leave the show today. If you're a listener and you want more information, where would we turn?
My personal Instagram, I'm on there more. Facebook's kind of overrated. At Curt Geier Hunts, but mostly ignore that, and Working Class Bowhunter, at Working Class Bowhunter, workingclassbowhunter.com, iTunes, all the podcast places you can find us. So yeah, Working Class Bowhunter podcast on Facebook, and that's where we're at.
Very cool, man. This has been fun. It's been long overdue, and I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on and learn a little bit more about who you are behind the Working Class Bowhunter. See, I got that right this time. And, Love to do it again. I enjoy talking to other podcasters about the trials and tribulations of getting a show to work. So
it is cool, man. I appreciate you having me on the show, man. I'll send the invite out to you to come on our show here. We'll get one going like October, right in the midst of hunting season. We'll get you on, and if you have time, if you're not too busy chasing whitetails, but we'll share it up, man. We'll have to keep doing this. Right. It's been fun.
As soon as the sun goes down and I crack a cold one, we'll do that, and then it's game on next day. But yeah, we'll find time definitely to be on the Working Class Bowhunter. That'll be great.
We will. Yeah, that'll be awesome. Would love to have you.
Cool.
And Dusty, if he wants to be on.
Definitely. I think he should surface around then, I think.
Good.
Well, thank you to Curt Geier for joining us on the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. Go check out his podcast over there on iTunes, Working Class Bowhunter. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a little different than this one, and rightfully so, because I don't think all podcasts should be the same. He has his own style, his own flair, his own group of guys. Some of the characters that we have on this show, like Mr. Dusty Phillips and Jim Keller, you probably find similar people over there. As Curt says, his buddy Steve is a lot like Dusty, and I do find his show to be entertaining, so go check it out when you get a chance. Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
I think that I'm going to go with...
The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
The available knowledge out there on equipment that you can purchase, reviews, facts, demonstration videos, you need to utilize all that when you're going to buy or spend your hard-earned money on a piece of equipment that your life's dependent on, or your success of killing a mature whitetail is dependent on. Take the time, review the products, watch the videos on how to put it together, there's a lot of things out there that could be beyond your skill level, and you buy it, and you can't get it figured out. That's something that you need to take into consideration when you're spending your hard-earned money on a product. Do the research, Google it, YouTube it. As myself as a hunter, before I buy something, I check it out. I go through and find out where the flaws are and why and how. And if it's a good product, there's going to be great reviews. I mean, that's just the way it works. So take the time and research your products that you're buying to go to the woods with. Tree stands, trail cameras, all of that's it's all information that's available right at your fingertips. Just take a little time, slow yourself down. I'm excited, no different than everybody else, to buy a new product, but I definitely want to check it out and make sure it's something that's functional for me. It's going to work for what I want to do with it. It's going to withstand I'm a big guy, so I got to check things for weight, size. It's got to be wide for me. You just do your research and spend your money wisely. And I tell you, it's more rewarding when you can have something that actually helps you and works great for you in the woods. It just makes you feel a whole lot better about the way your season's going. I'm telling you, I'm living proof of it. Jay, you're living proof of it. And there's a lot of hunters out there that take the time and get educated on what you're buying. That's my Chubby Tines tip of the week.
Well, that's great, man. Thanks for that tip of the week. That was fantastic. Thank you to Morse's Sporting Goods for sponsoring the Chubby Tines tip of the week. I'd also like to say thank you to all of our sponsors. Without them, this show is not possible. And specifically, I'd like to say thank you to Advanced Takedown Treestands, Covert Scouting Cameras, the Horny Buck Seed Company, and once again, Morse's Sporting Goods. I truly believe in each and every product that we're advertising on this show. We've tried them all. We've been to the stores. Each and every one are absolutely high quality, high grade products. And if you're shopping for any one of these types of items, please give our sponsors a shot first. Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out here in the studios with me?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Instagram and Twitter @ChasingAntler, Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Likewise, you can shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com, and you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Twitter, which is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Instagram, instagram.com/bigbuckregistry, and YouTube, which is youtube.com/bigbuckregistry. On YouTube, you can listen to all of our podcasts in their entirety. far as videos are concerned, it's a boring video, but the audio content is there, so you can actually listen to our podcast. You can also listen to all of our live shows that we've done on Thursday nights when we do them, and we've gone back and re-interviewed a lot of our previous guests we had on the show just to put a face to a voice. Let's put it that way. You can always listen to our show on other places as well, not just YouTube. We're found on iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, and Blueberry. And if you would like to submit a buck to our page for consideration and be featured on our page in front of 250,000 diehard deer hunting fans, all you have to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all of the instructions will be right there. I think that's pretty much everywhere we're at. I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
That's a whole lot of big buck, Jay.
Sure is. I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.